In April 1944, the front line of the British Empire in Asia ran across a tennis court. On one side of the lawn, Japanese infantry. On the other, men from Kent and the Punjab, throwing grenades across what used to be the net. This is the story of the largest Japanese invasion of India ever attempted, and why nobody remembers the army that stopped it. By 1944, Japan owed everything to this river. Burma had fallen 2 years earlier, and with it the land road to China. Beyond the Chindwin rose hundreds of miles of mountain jungle, and beyond the mountains lay the prize, British India. 3 names guarded the gate: Impala, a supply city on the plain; Kohima, a hill station on the ridge above it; and behind them both, Daipur, the railhead that fed the entire front. Whoever held these 3 places held the door to India. The man who was meant to kick that door in was Lieutenant Raya Maguchi, commander of the Japanese 15th Army. His plan, Operation Yugo: throw 3 divisions across the Chindwin, swallow Impala and Kohima before the British could react, and stand on the doorway to India. He was so certain, he spoke of riding a white horse through the streets of Delhi, and marching with him came 30,000 men of the Indian National Army, Indians under Subhas Chandra Bose, fighting to throw the British out of their own country. Their slogan: Chahao Delhi, on to Delhi. There would be Indians on both sides of this battle. The catch in Matugi's plan was simple. His men carried 3 weeks of food. After that, they would be eating captured British rations. Or nothing.
Gentlemen, we crossed the Chindwin at first light. 3 weeks' rations and Imphal falls. Delhi will follow.
The 33rd Division crossed first, on the 8th of March, and swung up the Chindwin Road from the south. A week later, the 15th and the 31st Divisions followed, further north, and the British commander, General William Sim, did something that seemed like defeat. He ordered his forward divisions to retreat. It was deliberate. Slim wanted this battle on Imphal Plain, at the far end of Japanese impossible mountain supply line. On open ground where his tanks, his guns, and above all his aircraft could do the killing. The trap was set, but it had a flaw. Slim expected a single Japanese regiment to move on Kohima. What came out of Naga Hills was Soto's entire 31st Division. In Slim's own words, "We were not prepared for so heavy a thrust." By early April, Imphal was sealed. 4 divisions of Schoon's 4th Corps cut off on the plain with their backs to the mountains. And at Kohima, the miscalculation arrived in full. Against 15 to 20,000 Japanese came a garrison of roughly 2,500, 1,000 of them clerks, cooks and convalescents, stiffed by 1 battalion of the Royal West Kents. The perimeter shrank hill by hill, until it was Garrison Hill. And then it was the District Commissioner's bungalow, where the trenches faced each other across his tennis court, 20 yards apart, close enough to throw grenades across the baseline. They held that court for 13 days, until a relief column punched through on the 18th of April. It took another month of fighting before a British tank was finally driven up to the lawn itself. Imphal should have starved. Instead, the sky became a road. In 11 days at the end of March, an entire division, the 5th Indian, was flown off one battlefield in the Arkan and landed in this one, straight into action. American transport aircraft were pulled off the hump run to China to do it. Then the airlift settled into a rhythm. 540 tons a day, 900 tons in all, plus 12,000 fresh troops in and 43,000 non-combatants, and 13,000 wounded out. The monsoon broke in mid-May and didn't slow the airmen down. Matucci's plan were counting on the last handfuls of rice. The defenders were being fed by Dakota. By late May, the Japanese 31st Division at Kohima was starving exactly how its commander had predicted. Sato had never believed in Matugi's supply plan. On the 25th of May, he signalled 15th Army that without food, he would withdraw. Matugi replied, "Retreat, and I will court-martial you." Sato's answer, "Do what you please, I will bring you down with me." He then switched off his radio and marched his skeletons off the ridge. On the 22nd of June, British and Indian troops driving from north to south met at a milestone of 109. The road was open. The siege of Imphal was over. On the 3rd of July, Matugi finally abandoned the offensive. By then, parts of his army had simply stopped obeying orders to attack. What walked back across the Chindwin was not an army. Japanese casualties ran some 50,000 in the Imphal fighting alone, and thousands more at Kohima. And most of the dead were killed not of bullets, but by starvation, disease, and exhaustion on the retreat. The survivors called the trap back to the river the Road of Bones. By one historian's count of the army that marched on India, barely 1 in 8 men came back fit to fight. The defence had cost the British and Indian divisions over 16,000 casualties of their own. Matugi was relieved of his command by the end of August. Slim's 14th Army, the majority Indian army that had just inflicted on Japan the greatest land defeat in its history, went on to take Burma back. Its own soldiers called it the Forgotten Army, and they were right. The victory vanished behind D-Day in every newspaper, and it has stayed behind D-Day ever since. Then, in 2013, the National Army Museum asked the British public to name Britain's greatest battle. The public chose this one, Imphal and Kohima, above D-Day, above Waterloo, above Agincourt. A battle most of the voters couldn't place on a map, won by an army of most of them that had never heard of. An army that was largely Indian, defending India at Kohima. The memorial above the tennis court carries the answer of the men who fought here, 4 lines long.